Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. It's another Monday. This is the 17th Monday. Good morning, Nick. How are you, my dear?
Good morning. I am very good. Thanks. How are you?
I am doing well, and I have a song to sing for everybody coming in. My karaoke app cleared itself of all my favorites, so now I have nothing. And so I'm singing something I've sung before, so I hope come on in. The comments are open. We'll double check to see that that we are live on LinkedIn. There's usually a small delay. So as you're coming in, let's listen to some music, shall we? Can't wait to see who's here this morning. Exciting topic. In the chilly hours and minutes of uncertainty, I long to be in the warm hold of your love and mine, to feel you all around me and to take your hand along the sand. But I may as well try and catch the wind. When sundown veils the sky, I wanna hide a while behind your smile, and everywhere I look, your eyes would find. Good morning, Rebecca. For me to love you now would be the sweetest thing, would make me sing. But I may as well try and catch the wind. Omar! Dee 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 dee. When the rain has flung the leaves with tears, I want you near to kill my fears, to help me leave all my blues behind. For standing in your heart is where I want to be and long to be. But I may as well try and catch the wind. Hey, Adrienne, calling in from New England. Hi, Shay. So glad you're here. It would be the sweetest thing, would make me sing, but I may as well try and catch the wind. But I may as well try and catch the wind. All right. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Nick. How are you?
Better after that song. I know I definitely started the day good, but I do love opening up with a song in the morning.
Oh, thank you.
I think it sets the tone.
Well, you know, I started singing karaoke on Friday nights with Noni, and that was the only place that I sang karaoke. And then I decided, well, get a karaoke app. And I had all kinds of songs that I practiced, got in my key, and the whole thing is cleared out. Not making me happy today. Oh. I had about 30 songs, but I know which ones they are, and they're still there. Good morning, Christy. Look who's here. You know, it's kind of good that we're starting with a small group. So we've got Omar here. Omar, I'm going back to watch your Do We Really Know Them with Mac Lobsher. I'm so excited to do a replay on that, a team replay. And so glad that you're here, Christy. I think you're really going to like this subject today. We're talking about influence. And of course, my wonderful co-host, Nicole, she'll be leading us off today with the conversation about influence. And what is it? what is, she has some interesting views on what influence is. What are your views? And I've put in the details and in the comments the link at 10:35 if you would like to come up on stage in the studio and talk about what's coming up for you as far as this word goes. We'll talk for about 20 minutes first so that you can kind of sink your teeth into it. So Christy, big supporter, as is my wonderful friend Adrian. Christy is part of the 2350 network with Nicole and I, and she is a customer service specialist and supports our work consistently. Nothing pleases a Sagittarian more than consistency. I can tell you the truth on that. All right. And there's Adrian. Adrian's up in New England. A little chilly, according to Nick. We've had 85 in North Carolina. It was hot yesterday afternoon. Beautiful. I hope you all had a great weekend. Nick, did you have a good Easter yesterday?
Oh gosh, it was so nice. We went over to my aunt's house, and I grew up with her. In fact, my son grew up with her kids. So she has 5. Well, we were a full house, just the way it used to be. It was lovely.
Oops, sorry about that. I was just double checking something here. I'm sorry, you went to your aunt's and you grew up with your aunt. And what did she fix? What was the cuisine yesterday for your family?
Oh boy, it was a mix of everything. So we always do ham on at Easter. Culturally, it was a thing in Trinidad. I think the only thing we were missing was my mom always used to make homemade hot cross buns. I loved it. But see, there was shepherd's pie, macaroni pie, pork loin, mixed veg. Oh my gosh, it was so much. I did a sweet potato mixed with lots of fresh veg and chicken together. So I don't think we made it to dessert, but that's always the case. That's always the case. We get sunk at the table.
Oh, it sounds delicious. Oh my goodness, that is so awesome. Shay, I don't know you. Thank you for sharing that. I was just visualizing all those yummy, yummy, yummies. Well, thank you, Shay. So glad that you're here. Let's connect. Make sure that you connect with Nicole and I. Nicole Galindo has her own publishing company called Guiding Brilliant Writers, and she is a master at doing books at the same time. Last year, she did 3 at once with 12 authors each. So that was 36 authors. And let me tell you, that's kind of like herding cats in a lot of ways because everybody has their own view, right? And then she followed it up at the end of the year with a legacy anthology, which I was so excited to get to write in because I'm at the place now in my life where I remember as a child, I didn't pay much attention to my grandparents. I loved them. But it wasn't until after they were gone and I was an adult that I was curious about, well, what was their story? So my story, the first part, was done in December. So thank you, Nick. So if you want to publish a book or you want to be part of an anthology, like write a chapter, you've never written a book, this is a great way to get your feet wet. You may never write your own book. You may just do chapters. You can do whatever you want. Right, Nick? Yeah?
100%. And a chapter is a great way if you feel you have a book in you, but you're not sure where to start. Great way to get your feet wet and see how the whole process feels to you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. And so what I'm doing is acknowledging those of you who have come into the room. And Maryam, you look like a new friend. I'm so excited. You might be one of Nick's guests because Nick also invites, so she can welcome you in just a minute. And there's Ashi from Windy. Oh, well, this was the perfect song. But I may as well try to catch the wind. It's chilly then in Toronto, I'm suspecting, because you're up above New York. Let me guess, Fahrenheit, I'm going to guess 38 Fahrenheit in Toronto. Tell me if I'm right. And look who's here, another new friend, Deanna Philpott. And so in case this is a guest of Nick's, I'm going to let her acknowledge you. There's Lata. Hi, Lata. I haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you so much for being here. And Nick is actually producing in the back for me. So she's going to run comments. It's a challenge to do all of this at once. It really is. And to think. Truly. And to think there's Jason, HR for You, nonprofit. Please check out Jason forehand. He has a wonderful podcast that he releases on Fridays on LinkedIn. He's already pre-recorded it. I've been on it. Nick was on it last week. And he is all about his nonprofit, right? And also he has the cook. What is it called, Nick? Tell me about the cook, please.
That's Cooking Up Change, and that's actually Peter Schaller.
Okay.
A few weeks ago. That's okay. It's called 𝘬𝘠𝘠, and they are building out a transformation kitchen in Nicaragua. And
transformation kitchen. That's what it was. I love that. I'm so glad you're doing that, Jason. So look, each week I put out a carousel of all the lives on LinkedIn, not all of them, some of the lives. And on the last page is everything about the nonprofits we support. And so honored to do that for Jason. Totally. All right, let me just see, make sure that, and there's Jay Pasqua. Very interesting that we're going to be talking about a word today because it was Jay who taught me something a few weeks ago. We'll see how it bubbles up in this conversation about influence. Okay, it's an interesting word and people have different views about it. There's Lisa Fevick. She is a registered dietitian. And don't let me forget here that Jay is a master storyteller. And he has a wonderful new book out, which is really all the parts and pieces of storytelling. And forgive me, Jay, I don't remember the name of it right now, but please connect with Jay and find out his book, because if you're a storyteller, you'll want to look at this. You'll want this as a reference. It would be a great gift for people, going to college, starting out in life, high school graduation gifts, because, they're going to have to write a lot, right? They are writing compositions, and honestly, compositions are stories in their own way, aren't they? All right. And Lisa is a registered dietitian. She has her own show live every other Tuesday afternoon Eastern, and she guides people on what to eat to alleviate the symptoms during the decades of menopause and all that goes along with it. And she also puts out a bulletin, a newsletter each week. And all these foods are good for you, period. They're all very good for you. And look, we have Michelle Bodenhorn. Hi, Michelle. So glad you're here. Grab the link if you want to come up on stage when we're talking about a very specific subject. And I'm happy to say that Nicole is going to lead us off this week after I frame, kind of what you've already read in the details. I hope so. And there's MD. Hi, MD. Gosh, he's been a follower of mine for quite a long time. And so with that, let me set the room, okay, for you. So, the things that I wrote about, and I have a concept I want to show you. I believe in influencing people, okay? I believe we can, but we cannot control them. As I've said so many times, the only thing that we control is what we think, how frequently we think it, and how we feel when we think it. The more we think something that feels really good, there's a spring in our step. And the more we think about anxiety and problems, we're kind of dragging our feet. Where do you want to be? That's how you influence people. And just by, looking at gratitude and being grateful for what we have, and special thoughts this morning for the Pope, who passed away very early this morning, one day after Easter. I found the timing incredibly beautiful. And he was a wonderful man who stood for everyone. I really enjoyed his papacy. All right, so control, only what we think, right? And then influence is because of the way we think and articulate our story, our message, it's going to land for people in their listening a certain way. Now, keep in mind, everybody is different. So we're kind of looking at what is influence? What is influence to you? What does it mean? How do you know when you've had it? Like, do you know when you're speaking with someone or you're working on something and your ideas or your expertise or the way you articulated something really landed for that person and they got a light bulb moment, right? Based on, your kindness, your heart-centeredness. For me, that's influence. There's many, many aspects of it. Also, does it look like coincidence to anybody? And is it control? Well, we can be sure that I can tell you we can't control anybody, okay, unless you tie them up. And we're not talking about tying people up, okay? And this is all about, I'll leave you with this, mental agility, the ability to use the smarts we have, the experience we've had, the expertise we have to make life better for someone else. For me, that's where I come from. I'm not interested in selling you something for money. At one point, I was, and I had to make sure that I stayed in the heart-centered space and not coming from poverty. Oh my God, I've got to make this sale. It's not easy to do because we all have to have greenbacks, right? But I'm at a place in my life where nothing I do is, I don't sell anymore. But I've done it in my life, so I understand. So let's begin with Nick. Nick, lead us off in this. What is your experience? I asked Nick to take this word and lead this conversation. She had some very interesting viewpoints that I hadn't thought about. So take it away, my friend, and I will run comments while you're speaking, and I'll be taking notes too.
Oh, thank you so much.
Of course.
So, I guess with anything else, I usually run first to find out what the dictionary meaning is. I'll tell you, very rarely is it ever my assessment of it. And I think a lot of that has to do with my experiences. And I think everything is very subjective in the way it lands with people. So I looked this up, and as a noun, it says the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself. So I don't necessarily disagree with it. But I guess for me personally, that word influence doesn't always land well. I like to feel that perhaps I impact people based on the things that I share and the, what I show of myself. So I like how you just said you no longer sell. I don't think that as a publisher, or even starting before that with the other work that I did, that I was ever a seller. I offered my services, and I offered that by stating what they were, stating a pain point and how my services could help to alleviate that. Now, that sounds very clinical. In terms of writing, it's not. It takes on a lot more of a personal meaning, right? Because the pain point is something beautiful inside of you that you want to get out for many different reasons. And the resolution in that is, a lot of times it could be feeling kept back because you feel you don't know, lack of knowledge, lack of confidence, comparisons. So that writing journey takes you through so much. you know, and to some extent, people may consider uh, what I do and how I do it a way of influencing others. I like to think of it as a way of impacting others. And like I always say, I think Lisa Fevek, my Trini friend, made a comment about me being a good publisher, especially for newbies to work with. And I couldn't agree more. That's really where I want to be, because not too long ago, I was that newbie. And the impact part is knowing that I hold and not necessarily a dream, but a goal of someone else in my hands for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to help them achieve that goal to the best of their ability, not mine. A lot of times, even the abilities of the writer supersede mine. But it's a journey we walk together. But the final on that page or those pages are yours. So along the way, so much more happens. Confidence building, collaboration, learning from each other. So that's why I don't necessarily care for the word influence. Like, I think most words have a positive and a negative connotation, and a lot of
They
it,
all do. They all do. Yeah.
it depends on how it lands with you. So I guess if I had to use the word influence in a positive way, and not with respect to the publishing, but just myself, I would say yes, I have influenced some others who are bipolar like myself or have a mental illness to perhaps dig a little deeper, work on building self-awareness, and maybe even see how they could shift their mindset a little bit to be more how they influence themselves and their thoughts influence them versus how the external influences them. So I think the more we could draw away from how the external influences us, the more we can accomplish in our lives, because we're the ones that are influencing ourselves, and therefore keeps us more focused on our own goals. So not to the exclusion of other people's goals, but prioritizing our goals. To me, that is the purpose. What is my purpose? My purpose is to achieve a goal. What is my goal? How do I get there? And that's where influencing myself with my thoughts plays a very, very big part. So
Got it.
I have quite a perspective on that word, as you can see.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, the reason I mentioned Jay, so in our conversation, and thank you for that, Nick, what came up was that word. And one of the things that Nick said, which you didn't mention again, but that's all right, I remembered it, is that, each person is going to look at that word differently based on their experiences. And of course, with the conversation, we know that our experiences, a lot of them are not positive. So it can really color or influence your own thinking. Now, I remember with Jay, and this was a real breakthrough for me, was he was in one of my, I know, it was one of the Think and Grow Rich rooms where we were talking about desire, which is this obsession. I was using the word obsession, and it didn't land for him. He kept pushing back. And so finally I just asked him, I think it was an audio room, and I think he got up on stage and we got to actually talk about this. Yes, look at this. Influence very often has a negative connotation associated with manipulation or conforming to a note. That's right. But we're not using it that way. That's the negative side, right? So we're coming, and it has to be there. In every word, there's a positive and negative, because everybody has fears. So I know even with the word God or Spirit or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or Krishna, well, whatever it is, we know what this is. but we feel more comfortable based on our experience, which was Nick's point, with the word that has the most positive impact. And we kind of want to shy away from the negative one. So she came up with impact. But what happened with Jay was finally we figured out it was the word, because he had, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Jay, but that he bristled at that word. So something in his background, he didn't like it. Once I realized that, we talked about it and he came up with a better word. And we came up with compelling. And that was fine. So compelling was objective for Jay. Obsessive had kind of a dark tone to it. Really important for people to get this. The same thing with Nick and I. We were talking about it and I went to, why is this bringing up negative, and realize, I said, well, what's the word that who you're really being in the world? And she says, I love impacting people. So I love that word too. So while yes, the rules of engagement and storytelling. Thank you, Jay. So you can switch it out for any word. When I say spirit, you could say God. When I say God, you could think Jesus. It doesn't matter. It's a label for the thing. And we want to pick the one that makes us feel good. And I admit totally that I absolutely like impact better than influence. But we're talking about our ability to influence today. So thank you for that, Nick. That was fabulous. Any more notes out here that we should address? Anybody you'd like to acknowledge before we continue just a bit more? You see some people you know?
I honestly just want to say hi to everyone as a whole. I put out the who's advertising the event. And sometimes I see people that have not necessarily commented, but have supported. God forbid I should remember every single person. But I do actually like to look in the areas where people support and not necessarily comment. Because I'll tell you something, sometimes you see the repeat bubbles of people's faces, so you know they're consistently supporting you, right? For whatever reason, they're not sharing a comment. But it's interesting because I like to visit the profiles of those people, right, to see who they are and what they're about. And sometimes there isn't necessarily alignment in terms of what they do and what I do, but what that tells me is that there's something in my content that they're resonating with, even if we are in different fields or such, if you will, right? And in a weird way, that could be influence as well. Not that you're influencing them to do one thing or the other, but they feel some sort of positive influence by what you are sharing enough that they would like to come back and visit and see what else you're sharing. Yeah, and I I think a lot of it has to do with how you spin it. I mean, truthfully, for me, if I said that I didn't have influence, that would probably be wrong to some extent. Because, yes, I think people are influenced by the positivity of my story, the positivity of my capabilities, because I'm showing people that it's possible. Now, I'm not negatively influencing people because I'm not showing people it's possible and to jump off a cliff. No, I'm telling you to assess and make sure that when you do, you have a parachute. That's what I did. Right? I made sure that I prepared for this moment of transition into entrepreneurship, so that along with it did not come too much of the fear of failure, the burdens of finances, of not getting a customer for the first year, and these various things that you stress about, right? So
I'm laughing because you didn't prepare. I'm sorry. I don't mean to object with you, but you decided in one day that you were going to have your publishing company.
Well, yes, I knew that. I knew it was a matter of time.
Yes.
And I decided that this is the year that I was going to do it. And did I not decide till the beginning of the year? Yes, to actually do it. But had it been running in my mind that I have what it takes to establish a company and succeed, yes, it was there before. So my own thoughts influenced me, right? My own, and again, it comes back based on experiences, because for 2 years I did what I did for a love of, without a financial dependency. So I was able to, by trial and error, develop that win, and allow myself to absorb that. So by the time I got to that point, I had already influenced myself to believe that success was the only thing that was coming my way. Now, notice I didn't say success was the only option. Okay, success was the only thing coming my way. So that is my belief. So because I believe that, I do feel that people are influenced by my positivity. People are influenced by my transparency to see when I'm hitting brick walls. And then when I turn around and say, okay, I figured a way around or over or through this brick wall. And even to know that I influence myself sometimes, and it doesn't end necessarily in the result that I desire. Okay. To accept that, okay, I'll find another way around now.
That's right. And that is influencing yourself. The reality is, though, there was no worry about clients because you had already planted all the seeds the year before. So now you have a full docket, and it's hard as heck to get in on her docket. So if you want her to do promotions or covers, she can do covers. There's all sorts of wonderful things, offers audiobooks. But let's get back into what you're saying about influence. So it's the way that we develop influence. So let's talk about what you're saying. How is it that you're able to develop this influence or impact? It starts as a prompt, becomes a nagging feeling, and then a pressing conviction. One sound idea is all you need. That is how it begins. And when it compels you and you don't know how, that's the nagging. That's exactly, this is like this, because that's the universe, because that's God. We're co-creators. So I want to get into, how you develop influence. And as you said, it's the ability to affect a change by who we're being in ourselves, to your point, or another. And so I don't go for sales anymore. In fact, when people say, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you charge for this? I'm done with charging. I mean, I will charge. I do charge, right? But I'm not compelled in making a lot of money. I know that sounds crazy, but it's just who I am. I live more authentically this way, and I'm blessed. So there's a few things that in our character, and we've talked a lot about character. By the way, I'm Leslie Flowers, in case I didn't introduce myself, and this is Nicole Galindo. And that picture was taken 100 years ago. We are time travelers, and that's why you see our picture. It was just taken a few days ago, and we've aged all these years. Anyway, there are some very particular elements of character, and it's building trust. Okay, so I'm just going to use you as an example of how you influence people or impact them, because we all do it. It's in the distinction of what is it that we do, who are we being, that allows this impact, this inspiration, this motivation for others to do the thing that you've done that they haven't done, right? So, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too. That's the way I felt about that, about many, many things. If I can do these things, right? I have 12 books, 12. Well, I've lived twice as long as you. Keep going and you'll have 12 too, right? Oh, I see Tammy is here. Hi, Tammy. And what does she say? So many people feel stuck. Yes, in facing the fear. And as you know, if you study with me, we have 6 basic fears. Fear is our enemy, but we want to know our enemy really, really well so that we can combat it with faith. And that's why we know that there's a negative and a positive to everything. But the negative has a low vibration and yields negative things. We don't have to experience it all the time to know it's there, because the 6 basic fears are powerful, and they will be the first thought you have when you go to try to do something that you've never done before. So here are the components to building influence. And certainly what we're doing right here is part of it, because learning is the obvious one. There's me and me. Hi, Leslie. There I am over there. She's just stepped away for a minute. So the first thing you want to do, oh, it's Pokey. Is he? You can show him.
I didn't mean to step away. This is kind of funny. He was I guess he was crying over there for a little bit, like, Mom, come and get me.
Pokey.
Sorry.
He's not the only dog that comes to my shows. Elizabeth Borquez's dog, Toulouse, shows up for everything. He hears my voice, right? And he jumps up, because animals know vibration. So Pokey was just feeling a little neglected. And welcome to Luz Pipers. Thank you so much for being here, and Dr. Marcia for being here. Okay, so trust is the first one. The next one is clarity. The way you articulate what you're doing, your diplomacy, your ability to select views and words that land in a positive way as a possibility for people rather than something negative. This is high emotional intelligence. Okay, this is what we're working on. This is a pretty deep subject today. And by the way, I saw Sajid Kumar. Sajid, I'd love it if you'd come up on stage, if possible. Any one of you, Michelle, Carolyn Smith is here, works with seniors, a lovely leader. Get to know her. Pokey, you have to press the buttons to show their comments. No, it's okay. I'm kidding you. Pokey is falling down on the job. That's all I can tell you. He is an old gentleman who has not been feeling well lately. All right. So
Leslie,
the way, yeah.
I have to give the audience a joke.
Okay.
So I'm here. Thank you, Adrian. I'm here, and I hear him kind of whimpering, and I haven't heard him do that in a long time. So I'm wondering, well, what's wrong? So I'm texting my husband, who I believe is in the bedroom with him. Is he okay? And he's telling me, I think so. Nothing has happened. I said, well, he's howling and I'm live, right? And he turns around and says to me, I don't know. He seems okay. I get up, I go look for him. He's in the bathroom with the door closed. And I'm texting my husband. I said, I thought you were here. He's like, I didn't want to interrupt you. I snuck out. So here am I all this time thinking my husband's home and in the other room with him. And meanwhile, this little guy walked into the bathroom and got himself locked in there. That's why.
That's fine.
That's
that
hilarious.
Is okay, so let me get back to the elements. I want you to know, and he's always welcome. I will send him a separate invoice, though, for him participating. You know, dogs pay, people don't. Okay, so we've got trust. You have to develop trust. Nick has done that by taking some 60 authors through the anthology process. If you don't trust her after that, you're not going to find anybody else that you can trust. Okay. And then the way you articulate what you're doing, you have to be very succinct. You have to be sensitive to words, such as words like influence as opposed to impact, obsessive instead of compelling. You have to know people, which means you know yourself. really well. If you don't like the word influence, there are going to be other people who don't like the word. What's a better word? Just change it up in your mind. You don't need anybody else to do that for you. That is what I would say is mental agility, the ability to adapt and adopt someone else's point of view, then articulate it in a certain way. Also, the other way you influence is by modeling leadership. So with Nicole, let me tell you, herding 36 human cats for 2 months is quite a chore because, like I said, we're all different. And so it was really important that Nick modeled her boundaries and said, no, we're doing this way, and didn't let people run all over her. These things take practice. They take a heart. They take the ability to love what you're doing more than your 6 basic fears, which are screaming bloody murder. If I had taken on 3 anthologies with 12 people each, I don't think I would do it. I've done some pretty amazing things, but I could just hear the cacophony of my fears. You're going to do what? Right? Don't do that. Go make a cup of coffee and have a health food bar. And don't be thinking about that. All right. So also, you have to understand what stops others. So, Nick, I'm sure that you were stopped probably the first time you went to write or you thought about writing. So you have to understand, and this is the basic tenet, that to be a good leader, you have to at least have once surrendered as a follower. So like giving up the fear that you really wanted to write in it. You've never done it before. You never thought I'm not talking about you necessarily, but if we're using writing as an example, we can use anything. It's just germane right now. The first thing that's going to happen if you've never done it is the fear of criticism and judgment. Oh my God, what if I don't do it? What if I say I'm going to do it and then I don't do it? What if I do a lousy job? That fear comes from many years of failures, but particularly not so much as many failures as when we think about it again. We bring it right back up on a screen of our mind. We visualize it, and the vibration, the lousy feeling comes with it. And this is why people who don't like to public speak, because they were humiliated as a child. Every time they thought about it, they got sick to their stomach, but we're adults now. So when you go to do something like what Nick did, what I've done, and what you've done extraordinary things. It was so compelling that you move past your fear. You have to do that. If you don't break through that fear, the way you break through the fear is through love. Because you can't be heart-centered and afraid at the same time. You only have one thought at a time. Which one are you going to think about? Well, the good one, right? Ideally, but it works for the bad one too. Okay, now, mental agility is a big part of this. It's the ability not to be triggered by your fears, to be objective, to take a breath for just a second and think easily. And this is thinking, what point of view am I going to diplomatically express? Right? Oh, loose. Leadership is influence, adding value. It starts with the first step. Beautiful. Loose is over in Norway, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And so glad that you're here, Luz. And thank you for that. Remember, if you want to come up on stage, you can do that by grabbing the link, which is in the comments, and it's also in the details. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, there's 3 dots at the bottom of the screen. You can click that and go into the event details without losing this live. It will just reduce the screen, and then you can copy the link and paste it into a new browser, and that will bring you into our studio. So many people feel stuck. It starts with taking the first step. Exactly. That's what made me think of it, Tammy. But which fear? Which fear? Let's talk about the doctors that go to Ebola. They're not worried about being criticized. They're worried about the fear of illness. How do they not get sick? Because they're focused on helping people. You cannot be heart-centered and afraid at the same time. Not possible. One thought at a time. And how do you control which dominates? It's what you think about the most frequently and how you feel when you think it. That's why when you have something that you really, really want to do, then, oh, look, we have someone in the studio. Yay. So before we get into the studio, I'm so excited to just hang in there, Miss Joni. So I want to ask Nick, before I show this next concept, briefly, what have you got on tap this week about on Tuesday and Thursday? Tell us about this program and what the results is, if you would, please.
Definitely. I have a bunch going on this week, but just before we jump in, I do want to say, I think there are 2 triggers for me. When I think social media influencers, it annoys me. And I think that's one of the reasons I don't like the word influencers. I think before my social media experience, I probably would not have had such a negative connotation.
Interesting.
I guess my reason about that is that, yes, I agree everybody has a message and they should be able to share their message. My personal experience has been the majority of social media influencers that I have seen regurgitate the same message in different manners and repurpose their content as if people are idiots and don't see it. Now, as a creative and a content creator who's always looking for unique ways to share a message and unique ways to identify with a wider audience, I am just being me. And I think the influence comes naturally and organically when you are being yourself and following your dreams, and people tag along because they see it, they feel it, they want to be a part of it. Versus the vanity followers that need the validation for an influencer with 250,000 people to say, oh, hi, I see you. There's a big difference. So I think that's why one of the reasons for me with the influencing word is that.
That's a good point.
That leaders do influence. Leaders have the capacity to influence, but it's not always a good thing, right? So some leaders
right.
can influence you poorly by breaking you down and micromanaging you and creating negative thoughts in your mind. But then there are the other leaders that motivate you and raise you and bring the positive side.
Yes.
So when I think of myself as a leader or an influencer, in that case, what do I want people to feel that I wanted to feel? I think starting there naturally creates a leader in you. So
yes, and that is when I mentioned surrendering as a follower. If you've never surrendered as a follower, then you wouldn't know what it's like when you're a leader having been a follower, right? So that is a really good point.
And that is a good thing that you say, because, that word surrender bugs me too. But the way you say it, and that word followers bugs me too, but the way you have phrased it, it has a positive connotation.
Yes.
Right.
And that's influence. That's the kind of influence you're talking about. This is the piece of the clarity of articulation. And for me, knowing, right, that something triggered you, something triggered Jay, things trigger me, and that makes you more mentally agile. Now I want to show you a concept. Were you finished? Because I want to show you something really quick. Did you have anything else you'd like to share about that? I love that. I love that you admitted that it was your experience with social media influencers in a negative way, right?
Yeah.
And so you recognize both. Do all of you in the audience, I bet you do recognize both in a way, or do we?
My only share was what you asked me, which I didn't answer, of course, and I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Tuesday and Thursday is the person behind the pen. This is going into the third week now, and I created this event to give all 62 co-authors who've written with me an opportunity to read their chapter live. And really and truly, like I say, it's the person behind the pen, right?
Mhm.
You get to come up on stage and ask them questions if you like about their chapter.
Mhm.
But I think so many times we read and we resonate and we fall in love with the person who wrote it, but we never get an opportunity to actually meet that person. And I think that
That's right.
that just takes the depth of the writing to a completely different level. So all are welcome
Yes.
at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Yes, I love that. It is 6 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday Eastern, live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Thank you, Nick. All right. We've got some new people that have come in. Hello, 𝘕𝘂𝘃𝑒. So good to see you. And Sharon Byrne. Let's see. The link in the events is the link to learn about streaming. Oh, you have to copy and paste the blue link, not click the StreamYard graphic. Okay. So when someone shares the link, LinkedIn will often drop a graphic image below the blue link. Always copy the blue link with all the numbers and letters and do not click on the graphic. I forgot to remove it because I can, and I was doing it in a hurry. All right, are you ready? I want to show you one more thing, and then we'll have Joni. Hey, Joni, hang on one second because I think you'll love this. And then we're going to stay right on course here. So I'll be interested to see what you think here. Our wonderful Joni is here. Okay, people. You've seen this before, my friends. I want you to understand this from the capacity of your learning and growing and how the muscle of influence grows in direct proportion to its use. Now, when we distinguish where we are in our personal growth journey, we become more and more able to influence others in a positive way or impact others for them to see something they might not have seen before, that we land objectively as an opportunity or a consideration, not that it has to be this way. Now, when we begin, and you've seen this before, I just made this up, but it really, there's 4 competencies. I added the 5th one and found that really this is about influential emotional intelligence. And so if you haven't seen this before, let me just share briefly how it works and why I added the 5th one. That's for the masters. When you become a master at something, you reach the 5th level, and I'll explain that. So let's say you decide you're going to go into let's say you're going to go into human resources and hospitality, and you're going to go to school for that, right? When you check in and you start your studies, whatever the training is, particularly coaching is a good one because you don't need to be trained to be a coach. And yet I've known coaches that are trained and certified that couldn't coach their way out of a paper bag because they had all the book learning, but none of the practice. And then I know coaches who are not certified who are brilliant, right? So you really have to do your due diligence. There's a glut in our market. Anybody who wants to say they're a coach can hang out a shingle and charge. Anybody. So it's really important for us to be able to distinguish, are they heart-centered or are they money-centered? Are they coming after me to make money first? And then, oh, they'll help me too? What are they driven to do? Because if it's money first, it's poverty. Okay, they're worried about making money, but that's a real worry. So how do you get yourself over to heart-centeredness and let go of the money? It has to compel you. You have to be the one. I have to be the one that does this. I have to. because I've spent 25 years studying. I've charged plenty, but now I give it to you with the hopes and the intention that I can influence you into taking one big step or even a small one, not knowing the outcome. Okay, so the first one when you start is you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't even know that you don't know anything. You're basically ignorant. We all start there. Now we begin to learn a few things, and we realize we don't know anything. So we're consciously aware that we're totally incompetent, right? And I just love this because I remember going through all these stages with everything I've done, like getting married, cooking, all those things. What a mess. I remember one time with my first marriage, I didn't know, Nick, that oil didn't boil at the same temperature as water. And I was making French fries. And I was waiting for the oil to boil, and it wasn't boiling, and it wasn't boiling. And so finally I just said, oh, the heck with it, and just threw in all the French fries. Holy mackerel, that thing shot up to the ceiling. I was lucky that I didn't get hurt. I was unconsciously incompetent, right? And then I did some reading, and now I'm consciously incompetent, okay? We all go through this. As you move up this ladder, the more influence you have in a positive way. Now, I don't need to say positive. Thank you, Felipe. That's very sweet of you. Thank you. And this is what I've been doing, is articulating complex concepts in a simple way to impact you, to influence you. And Michelle Bodenhorn said she didn't either with the oil, right? I mean, it was a disaster. There was oil on the ceiling and French fries everywhere. Okay, so then the next one is, now I've done some studying. Now I've done a couple of years in university. I've gone to a hotel. You know, maybe I've had some in-service training. I'm starting to get to know what it's like to be in hospitality, how to deal with difficult people, how to read people. I'm getting better at what I do. I still love it. I still am staying on this. Now you're becoming competent. You could answer questions. Before that, don't answer them if you don't know them. If somebody stops you and says, do you know the directions? Don't give them the wrong directions. Just because that's really the fear of criticism, or that it's really trying to help, but you're going to give false information. Anyway, so now you're consciously aware that you're competent in this field. And you're also objective. You're not run by fear anymore, fear of like, oh, what if they get that I don't understand? You know, in the first couple of stages, it can be very daunting because you're really ignorant, you're vulnerable. And so your desire for this thing that you really want to do has to outweigh the fear of like, I've never done it before and I have no clue what to do. Now, the next step is the fourth one. And that was all there was, which was unconsciously competent. That means that you are fully confident. You've spent a lot of time doing this, and you don't even have to think about it. This is like when I take the stage, I'll have an index card with a few bullet points, but I do not have notes. I do not write down everything I'm going to do. I only need a word or two to let me know. So I am now unconsciously competent. I'm not worrying about my competence. The fifth one, though, is the one that the masters do. And so let me describe it this way. Whether I'm speaking to a room full of plumbers, a room full of human resource executives, a room full of lawyers or physicians, the content simply molds to land in their listening. And you are context competent. That is, you could teach your stuff to any group and your words and your articulation will be modified without your even trying to match the audience. So if you have examples, then it will be plumbing examples. It will be legal examples. It reminds me, and then I will bring up our guest. And thank you for Joni for being so patient. There was a women's group that was just starting out in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. And I can't remember the name of it, primarily Women's Presidents Organization. But their first meeting had about 200 people in the audience, and men and women were there. Their first speaker was a lovely gentleman who was talking about the passion test, which I thought was interesting. There were more women in the audience than men. This man, every single example, every quote, every joke, every single mention as an experience for the audience to understand this passion test were about men. Men's basketball, men's baseball, men's quotes, etc. And the women are sitting there. Finally, someone said, "What about Oprah?" Right? Somebody. So this is a person who was completely out of context. He was consciously competent about the passion test. What does it do? Right? But he hadn't done it enough to know his audience, to become unconsciously competent and sensitive to what they were interested in, and he didn't make the shift. So obviously he'd been teaching mostly men, right? So he had no examples, no experience in examples with women for a passion test. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you like this. Where are you in your area of study? Right? Where I am is context competence. But again, I've been doing this for 25, 30 years in personal development. Hundreds of presentations, books, all the stuff. I can talk about this and relate it to the plumber, to the attorney, to the physician, to the HR executive. It doesn't matter. I know enough. And I've been around long enough that I sit in number 5. Where are you? All right. I hope you have enjoyed that. And I did hear one other thing I'm going to share with you. It was discovered through some research that's going on right now about the feeling, the vibration, the energy that is the most powerful, that is the highest influencer. Now, most people think it's love and kindness, and I did too. But according to these studies, guess what? Who knows? Well, I'm going to tell you, this is what made me think about it. Authenticity. Higher vibration, higher leadership. This is being able to be yourself no matter where you go. This is the ability to live in a world with context competence. And do we ever actually reach it? No. It's an aspiration. It's an aspiration. So with that, let us bring up our lovely Joni. Hi, Joni. And before I allow you to speak, I want to ask Dick if she has anything to share about that model. No, you're good to go. Okay, you patient woman. So we're staying right on topic. It's either the graphic or it's about, what do you see as influence? Does it have a positive or negative? Would you pick a different word? Is there anything that we didn't cover in terms of, right, trust, authenticity, the ability to articulate? Oh, I forgot about credibility. You have to be credible as an expert. Joni, take it away. The stage is yours, my beautiful friend. How are you today?
Hi, good. It's like weirdly humid here today, so I'm in a tank top. I was in a construction shirt earlier this morning, but that one off so that I could be on your lovely stage. And anyways, I feel like I've a lot to add. Okay, first,
Pick one thing that you think, pick one thing to start with that you believe is something unique that we may not have heard before. And of course, the way you articulate it will be unique and fabulous. Please. Ah!
I want to make sure everyone out there knows that reviews on products and on websites are mostly fake. Companies are paid to give fake reviews. And so that's something I always looked at, the one on Amazon for the highest review. And that is just not true. It's not at all true. Every company uses them, from Poshmark to Booking.com to Amazon, clearly, to YouTube, to Google, and you could pay for
So
them.
what do you recommend for us if that's the case? Let's say that's the case. I do believe you.
It is the case. It's 100%.
What do you do? What do you do?
Yeah, I really try to look at the content. If I'm watching a video, make sure it's, something appropriate that I wanted to actually watch. It gives good value. And as far as buying a product, I do a little research, because sometimes something, let's say I'm looking for a pet feeder bowl. That's available, the exact same thing on Temu for $5, and it is $69 on Amazon. So I think a level of emotional competence is also deciphering what, always asking questions, always being curious. That is really important to me, to always be curious. And maybe that has to do with a little bit of my ADHD, I don't know. But I certainly, I just like to ask a lot of questions. I don't want to be one of those people who fall into a scam by an influencer or something on TikTok, which, my girls, they love TikTok, and they're like, oh, this beauty product is so hot right now. Can you get this for us, Mom? I'm like, really? And I was like, you give me 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, oh, it's canceled. It's canceled. And I'm like, exactly. Like
That is really good advice. So do the reading, do the studying. What else? What else is coming up for you that we can do?
So I guess a couple other things, but emotional intelligence is really a benchmark for grade school learning, so that this is nothing new. It's, you understand the basic emotions of happiness and sadness and anger, and then you get to know that your anger can cause someone else's anger if you throw a ball at their face. And then you're able to kind of differentiate in your head, oh, this makes me happy, this makes me sad, I'm going to take a break and recontrol my levels. And then you're able to regulate it. And then you get to empathy and that social perception that, makes people respond appropriately. But the complex emotional reflection, I forget exactly what you said, context competence, is really reflecting on your emotions and understanding the interplay between different emotional experiences and making them into your own personal growth and decision making, which hopefully a lot of high schoolers have, even though they're very emotional.
So where does practice come in with all of this? Because, how do you Okay, so you are doing this with your daughters. Okay,
And
and I'm sure.
my son is he's almost there. He's 9.
Okay, okay.
He's an angel. He's an angel
So,
on
so how frequently do they practice this, or do you bring this up
So
with them?
whenever I have them at dinner time, basically, we say grace, but then we talk about something emotional that happened in their day and how they reacted towards it, positively or negatively. I don't ask like, what was their favorite subject today, or who did they sit with at lunch, which is something I used to do. So I learned. And instead, now we talk about something, that like triggered something inside them that made them feel really happy or sad or whatever. And they know I'm like dorky mom, just to like, but they have to do it. They not like get up at the table unless they do it. So, but I do think, that higher level of intelligence, it's really intelligence, honestly. Like, it doesn't get there for a lot of people. Everyone listening right now, you're already almost there because you're listening to this. You're listening, you're interested in this. And so you're not, you're just doing the steps, going to your job, making $40,000 a year, whatever. You're doing this, and this is really good for you. But I do think it takes a long time, especially as an adult, if you have some trauma you had to work through. Like for me, bad guys and divorce, whatever. And I worked through it, and it takes a long time. And I was with my brother-in-law for Easter yesterday, and he is an amazing chef. And he's like, it took probably like at least 20 tries for me to get this sourdough right. And I was like, I bet it took more than that, brother. I was like, you've been at this. You're 47 years old. You've been at this since you've been, let's say, 16, and your dad died. I was like, you have been, this brings you joy. And so I bet you've been figuring out flavors that match together versus you saying you tried this recipe for 5 times or 20 times. So it
Excellent.
takes a long time, but everyone listening, you are there. You are almost at the greatest peak of the pyramid.
Well, you're almost there. And let me just say that you will never arrive.
I know. Well, who's going to carry that last triangle stone up that pyramid? Jeez Louise. That sounds hard.
Nick, how about you?
Like some muscles.
What are you getting from this conversation with Joni? That was so good. Thank you.
A lot. I like Joni always has a unique perspective, but she comes with some sort of a solution. And I think that's important. I mean, I do feel that some people are more susceptible to influence, but I think that is, again, usually based on experiences and perhaps not getting to a level of self-awareness that they have the ability to flip the script on those experiences, right? And the way they feel about them. I think people who are very wishy-washy and not grounded in their core values, or who seek validation and need to be seen and loved, and feel important, susceptible to people's influence. Whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. Their opinions become the opinions of whomever else it is they're being influenced by. They're just not grounded in who they are enough to make an educated decision, yes, but a decision that's based on their grounded emotions. Because I think that people aren't necessarily influenced by evidence-based things. They're influenced by their emotion and how something makes them feel. right? So even like Joni says, you're on Amazon, and I know because I'm a publisher now, and people approach me all the time, and they're like, "Oh, your book has low reviews. I have a specialist." I don't really want your specialist. I really want the 19 reviews on there to be verified purchases, left in some acceptable time frame of when this book could have actually been read and reviewed. And not some generic review. The review, really and truly, if you read what's in the book and it touched you in some way, there was some story that touched you, you see it because you see people say, I really resonated with so-and-so's story, or I really resonate with what was said in blah, blah. So, take the time and don't just look at a book that has 5 stars and 18,000 reviews and go, well, this must be a great book. Because when you are surface like that, you can really and truly miss so much deeper and more meaningful things, right? And I happen to think that the not so positive reviews are actually positive. I think there was one of the books that I did that the gentleman wrote, and I think it was on the legacy book about that. It was the first legacy book, I think. This was a waste of time, not worth to read. But you read it to be able to come up with that opinion.
Or maybe he didn't. Or maybe he didn't because people buy books and then they don't read them, right? That's possible.
Maybe, but something caught him enough to be a verified purchase. So that being said, though, I don't think it's necessary sometimes to deliver as harshly, but I appreciate his thoughts on the book, because don't put yourself out there if you're not really and truly willing to hear the thoughts of everyone else. Because that, like, is a fair criticism. And if you're going to own all day long that you are not fearful of criticism and you're going to be out there and be real, then be prepared for whatever's going to come, whichever way. Because you are not selling yourself and your soul out so people would love you. That's not what it's about. If that's what you think influence is, that's a problem, a big problem. That's not true influence.
Yes, and that person has not yet gotten curious enough to actually grow in conscious awareness. If you're still in that place, then you're not ready or willing. And that's okay. With me, that is okay if you're not ready and willing to do that. That's how we determine where we are on this particular chart, right? Be honest with where you are, right? All of us are likely consciously competent. We know that we know stuff, but are we unconsciously competent? Are we so competent now that we don't even have to think about it? We don't need notes. Or even better, have we reached context competence where we can share whatever it is we want to about publishing, about construction? It doesn't matter what it is, medicine. But our message and our heart-centeredness is so clear that it comes naturally. You see, we're co-creators. So what's actually happening, you don't think all these things are really in your head, do you? They are not. You have access to this information with our co-creator, which is the universe. Now, do we understand 100% right now how it works? No. But have we seen it work 1,001 times? Yes. And I wanted to bring this up, and then I'm going to bring up our wonderful Sharon. Hey, Sharon, you finally saw. I said that to you twice or whatever. Okay, so one of the things you can do if you're looking for the link is put in most recent comment. So
I
if
put
you
it in the comments without the inclusion.
Right, and I did too. I sent a private message. So I think anyway. So now this is important here. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. This is being heart-centered.
Someone else said that earlier too. I'm not sure if it's Chief So this comment came up twice.
Good. So it's really the constant fight between being heart-centered and being afraid. And so you really want to identify where is your view on this word, this thing coming from. Once you understand in yourself which of the 6 basic fears you're being triggered by, you'll see it in other people. So just so you know, what are we fighting against with positive, agile thinking? Being able to influence, we have to shut down the fear of criticism and judgment in favor of heart-centered servant. We have to shut down that we need money, that we can't do it unless it's all about money. No, we're people first, money second. Not money first, people second. You can't be both. You cannot play both ends against the middle. You either aspire to people first and money second, or the truth is you're going after money first and people second, and you haven't gotten your curiosity. Fear of illness, fear of loss of a loved one, fear of old age, and fear of death. Sharon, come back. It's your turn. Unmute yourself.
I just had to shut my door. How are you? And thank you for sending me the link.
Shut the door.
I did.
Shut that door. Okay, so staying right on topic here, you've heard Joni, you've heard Nick, you've heard me, you've seen the comments. What one thing is coming up for you as we get close to the end of the hour about influence, how to create it, what it is, how to recognize it in yourself? The floor is yours.
For me, I think influence has a really big spectrum of how you can influence. There's many different ways you can influence. For me, both personally and professionally, my choice of way to influence is really to lead by example and live the values and the principles that I believe in, and just and so for me, that's how I move through the world. And I think influence and emotional intelligence are connected, because you can so our emotions, really, the way I see it is that our emotions come from the fact that we see situations and experiences really from our perception, which is based on our experience and what those experiences have taught us, positive and negative. So when you can really take a step back and say, what is it about this situation that has triggered these emotions in me? You can step away from or separate yourself from the emotional part easier, and then you can make a more cognitive choice. And the influence that you have is going to come from the cognitive choice, the intellectual side, because the first reaction we have to anything, and I don't care who you are or how many, how long you've lived, the first reaction humans have is an emotional response. So when you become aware of the fact that you're going to respond with your emotions first, you can put yourself in a situation where you can deal with that emotion and then move into what can I do about it? And that affects your influence or how you influence.
Now, I want to bring something in here, because the emotional response is fear, one of your 6 basic fears. And what we're doing now, your conscious is a response. It's a feeling. So we're saying the same thing. Everybody has these 6 basic fears, except for people that were born into wealth, which is a tiny fraction of less than 1%. So you're right. Any idea you get that you've not done before, okay, so if you've done it before effectively, that wouldn't be a good goal. But if you've done something before, you don't have any fear typically of doing it again. But any new idea you have, or anytime you want to do something that you failed at before, the very first thought is emotional. It is not thinking. It is a reaction. There is no conscious thought in the subconscious, and that's 95% of what we think. So if you can see with what Sharon's saying, what I'm hearing here is if you see which one of these fears typically it's fear of criticism or judgment or fear of poverty. Usually those are the two main things. I can't afford it and I've never done it before. I'm not sticking my neck out. If you can recognize this in yourself, and as Sharon says, take a breath, I say take a breath, she said, then come from your mentally agile side. You see, because perception, to Sharon's point, is our point of view. It's unique to each of us. We are 100% correct. We're also 100% incorrect for a lot of other people. But the truth is, it never stays the same. Because when you come into this room, you have one idea about influence. And when you leave, you have a lot of new ideas, whichever resonated with you. Then my question is, and it's always been my question, why do we argue about right and wrong? About making someone wrong or making ourselves right when we know that our point of view is always changing and it's unique? Sharon, you look like you're going to bust a gut.
I am going to bust a gut.
Okay.
Because, thank you. Thank you. I cannot hide that I am going to bust a gut.
Okay.
And the reason your question just resonates with me so much, Leslie, and brings up so much, because I myself am not a right fighter. I don't feel the need to be right. I feel the need to be heard and really heard, actively listened to, but I don't feel the need to be right. And the reason I feel like a lot of people feel the need to be right, at least the people that I've come in contact with, both professionally and personally, is because if they're not right, the fear takes over.
It's the fear of criticism because they've been wrong, because they've been judged, because we all have, we've been criticized, we've been humiliated. And that continual thing is that fear, and it's still alive. You know what, Sharon and you guys, what I've realized is that when we remember those times when we were hurt, we go right back to that age, because that vibration and the visualization, the vibration, the way you felt, and it's attached to the visual image. So not only did this happen to you when you were young, numerous times about failing, but whenever you were approached with doing something new or that you didn't know how to do, what do you think about? Well, you go right back to 6, 7, 8 years old. Yes? You guys get that? Yeah. So it's really, really about being mentally agile. Can you do what Sharon said? Can you do what Joni said? And what Nick has said is to take a breath before you react, because reacting and being triggered is not thinking. It is at the privy of your perception, which is always changing and interrupted by your fears. So there we go.
Can I just add too? I think with the right fighting and why we always have to, or a lot of people have to make people right, is we forget there's a perspective that we could look at this from that I think is very important. And the perspective that we can look at this from, rather than having to be right, look, and if you're dealing with somebody that's a right fighter, here's what I want to suggest to you. Try and find what they're saying. Listen for what they're saying their goal is, because the goal is probably similar or equal to yours. And then if you can get that person to come around to, hey, we don't have the same way of getting there, and we're both have valid points. Let's put our points together because we both have a common goal. It makes the situation so much gentler for everybody involved. I'm not saying any of this is easy. It's not easy, but it's more simple than we give it credit for, and it's worth it.
Yes, and you have to give up your point of view. You're temporarily. Correct. In order to do this, you have to know that you're triggered or that there's something that misaligns with this other person. What is it? And put it on the back burner and move into conscious awareness where you can actually listen objectively. Now we're at 11:30. This was fantastic. I want to close out the room, and I want to thank you all for being here. I want to respect our time. So last word from Joni on this, and then last word on Sharon, and then I'll move you back into the studio, and then we'll hear from Nick, and we'll close the day, starting off a brand new week. So you got a minute, Joni. What's bubbling up for you? What do you want us to hear, my friend?
So yeah, I just think it's really important as you get older to continue to be curious, open your mind, and be thoughtful in any of your responses to other human beings, because like they can teach you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And also, keep a little side eye on like those influencer things that they may be AI. Who knows? Robots are taking over our world.
Thank you for that. That is what I love about that is what you said is to keep an open mind, right? So you can do that. So thank you for that. You have been phenomenal. You always are. And I'm sorry we didn't give you enough time, because honestly, you ought to do your own shows because you have so much to offer.
I know, but I have my own job.
Okay, I got it.
And I got puppies coming. So anyone wants golden retriever puppies, you hit me up.
Okay, so this is shameless promotion, which we accept.
That's a little shameless.
Sharon, last word. Oh, sorry, Sharon, last word from you. A minute, please, madam.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody out there to be kind and gentle with yourself, because if you can be more kind and gentle with yourself, you'll automatically be more kind and gentle with others. Often we're not kind and gentle with others as much as we could be, because we're really not being kind and gentle with ourselves. And so I truly believe that that's where it starts. And along with that, you're going to be reactive. There's a difference between reactive and responsive, and we could have a whole show on this, but human nature is to react first and respond later. I want to challenge you all to try and shift that and try and become more responsive rather than reactive. And to be that, you have to really do the inner work to figure out what's causing you to react versus respond. But it's possible. So that's all I wanted to add.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what are those things? Which one of those 6 fears? Usually criticism or poverty. I can't do it because I can't afford it. I'm not doing it because I've never done it before. I tried something like it and I was a complete disaster, right? And then you don't do anything. So absolutely thank you to my sweet friends, smart friends, Joni and Sharon, for being up here. And now, without further ado, last words from my wonderful co-host and good friend, Nicole.
Another excellent Mind Over Matter Mondays. I just always enjoy the conversation. It is obvious that the people that come Monday after Monday after Monday, and the new people that come as well and then come back the next time, it's a very impactful, not influential, or maybe influential as well.
Either one.
Place to spend some time on a Monday morning. I think it gives a lot of food for thought for the week ahead. For me, it's about always keeping an open mind. Yes, knowing what your core values are, being empathetic, giving people an opportunity to express themselves where they're coming from. But for me personally, knowing in the end that ultimately it's my decision based on my reasoning and for what I need for where I'm headed.
Yeah.
I have a goal, professional and personal. And what I choose to pick up and put down, or I choose to just walk by on my journey. It's my choice. We're all on our journey at different points. Doesn't matter what point of the journey you're on. The point is you're walking your own. And so therefore, just embrace where you are. Just embrace where you are. There's nobody above you. There's nobody below you. We are co-collaborators, as Leslie said. We are on level with each other. And if you find somebody that makes you feel that you are either above or below them, it does not have to change the way that you view yourself. View myself on the same level as everyone else. And it works for me. So I'm not going to change that for now.
This was really, I love this conversation. Thank you, Nick, for being here. And everyone, I hope you found good value. Watch this again. Go ahead and look in the comments. Remember that people who are watching this again, including you or someone who's never watched it, they're going to get your comments too. And they're vital. They're really, really, really good things for us to be aware of. Now, for me, I do this every Monday morning, and it sets my week, right? It just sets my week, because what I've done is I've gotten curious, and I'm really exercising my conscious awareness. This is not reactive. I'm pretty good at not being reactive at all here. And actually, coaches that are really good can do that too, that they actually step into the world of their client and they're totally objective. There is no fear when a coach is in your world. They are your biggest proponent. It is all about you. It has nothing to do with them. And that's a mark of a really good coach. So I don't know. Oh, look, there's Mariana. Gosh, Mariana, hi, darling. Hope you're feeling better. That's all right, honey. This can be watched again. And we'll do something else very clever next week. I hope you've enjoyed the competency model. I've known about that for years and years, and it just seemed to fit perfectly as far as influence goes. And so as you go out into your week, if you're in Toronto, you may try to catch the wind. I'm going to sing this song going out. And then, let me just see. I've got a chat here from my... Okay. Now I'm reading the stuff between you and I. There's a lot when we do these. So go have a great week. Reach out on Friday morning at 10 a.m. I'll do another one of the principles of success in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, 10 a.m. Eastern. It's only 45 minutes. It is a teaching. This is a dialogue. That's a teaching. So it's more concise because it's a lot for you to absorb. So I hope you've enjoyed today. Both Nick and I love doing this. And as you go out, you can leave whenever you like. We'll sing a little bit for you. Try to catch the wind. In the chilly hours and minutes of uncertainty, I want to be in the warm hold of your love and mine, to feel you all around me and to take your hand along the sand. But I may as well try and catch the wind. When sundown pales the sky, I want to hide away behind your smile, and everywhere I'd look, your eyes I'd find. For me to love you now would be the sweetest thing. It would make me sing. But I may as well try and catch the wind. Do 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 do. When rain has hung the leaves arms with tears. I want you near to kill my fears, to help me to leave all my blues behind. For standing in your heart is where I want to be, and I long to be. But I may as well try and catch the wind. But I may as well try and catch the wind. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you, Nick. It's been great. Talk to you soon. Reach out. We're here. But I may as well try and catch the wind.
This is how to get in shape fast.